everyone. You're watching Eagle News America. I'm Alan Basoyahe coming to you from Los Angeles. It's Thursday, April 1, 2021. We have updates from our correspondents across North America. Thomas Likeness in Edmonton tells us about a 28-day lockdown happening in Canada's largest province. Anna Cui in Las Vegas, Nevada.
Nevada to receive $2.9 billion as part of American Rescue Plan.
Emerson Simon in Sylmar, California.
Los Angeles County Museum of Art reopens.
Jane Kathleen Gregorio in Corpus Christi, Texas, talks about local church celebrating anniversary by sharing groceries with the community. Bureau Chief Carlo Valdez in Union Township tells us about New Jersey small businesses receiving $25 million in aid. Eagle News correspondent Shanarelle Dement reports about Seattle nonprofits fighting hunger in Washington state. Plus, Bobby Soriano of our business desk reports about S&P 500 breaking the 4,000 index level for the first time in history. For EBC Sports, Julianne Evangelista in Boston reports about what's in store for overseas spectators at the Olympics and Paralympics in Japan. For today's roundtable, we will talk about what we want in our tortilla wrap because today is, you guessed it, National Burrito Day. Our coverage begins now. 4 people, including a child, were shot and killed Wednesday evening at an office building in Southern California. It's the 3rd such shooting in the country in weeks, with 18 people killed in 2 separate gun violence incidents in March. Authorities released a photo of the suspect, identified as 44-year-old Aminadab Gaxiola Gonzalez. Police Lieutenant Jennifer Amat says the shooter, whose motivations are so far unknown, sustained a gunshot wound and was taken to the hospital. She also says that the suspect was in critical condition, also that officers are still working to determine whether the wound was self-inflicted or a result of an exchange of fire with police. Police did not release any more information about the victims, but said that a 5th individual, a woman, had been hospitalized and was in critical condition. Meanwhile, in Washington, President Joe Biden on Wednesday unveiled a $2 trillion infrastructure plan aimed at modernizing America's crumbling transport network, creating millions of jobs, and delivering a once-in-a-generation investment that will enable the country to best China on the global economic stage. Biden compared his transformational plan to the ambitious U.S. space program of the 1960s, saying it would boost the livelihoods of poor and middle-class Americans, take aim at global warming, and be funded by increased taxes on large companies and the rich.
I laid out my vision for rebuilding America and with America's Jobs program. And while most of the cabinet will have a role in helping shape and press the jobs plan, today I'm announcing that I'm asking 5 cabinet members to take special responsibility to explain the plan to the American public.
Biden says Pete Buttigieg, Jennifer Granholm, Marcia Fudge, Marty Walsh, and Gina Raimondo will take the lead in explaining the jobs and infrastructure plan to the American public.
These 5 members will be Pete Buttigieg, Jennifer Granholm, Marcia Fudge, Marty Walsh, and Gina Raimondo. And I want to thank them in advance for the role they're going to play with this added assignment I'm asking them to take on. And we'll be discussing that today and among other things. And one of those other things, our administration, is a commitment to Buy America, the plan we're putting forward, to make sure that when the government is spending taxpayers' money, that they're spending it on American-made goods, American corporations, and American employees. Today, I'm directing every member of the cabinet, I mean this sincerely, everyone, to take a hard look at their agency spending and make sure it follows my Buy American standard, which we set out in January. I'm going to ask you all to report back to me at the next cabinet meeting.
The plan called for sweeping upgrades to transportation, telecommunications, and energy infrastructure, which President Biden said was both about revitalizing an economy weakened by the COVID-19 pandemic and restoring its global competitiveness. In other news, a paramedic testified on Thursday at the high-profile trial of the former Minneapolis police officer accused of killing George Floyd that the 46-year-old black man was already dead when he arrived. Seth Bravender, a paramedic who drove the ambulance that arrived at the scene in Minneapolis where officers were detaining George Floyd, says the 46-year-old African-American man was limp and unresponsive.
He was, I guess limp would be the best description. He wasn't, he was unresponsive and wasn't holding his head up or anything like that.
45-year-old Chauvin was captured on video kneeling on the neck of a handcuffed Floyd for more than 9 minutes during Floyd's May 25, 2020 arrest for passing a counterfeit $20 bill. The video of Chauvin, who is white, restraining Floyd went viral and sparked protests against racial injustice and police brutality around the world. Prosecutors are seeking to prove that Chauvin's actions led to Floyd's death, while the former officer's defense attorney has claimed that he died due to illegal drugs and underlying medical conditions. Smith said Chauvin and other police officers were still on top of Floyd when he and his fellow paramedic, Seth Bravender, arrived on the scene in an ambulance.
And while your partner was checking for a pulse and checking pupils, were the officers still on top of George Floyd while that process was going on?
Yeah.
You were seen bending down over Mr. Floyd, and there was a gesture made with your hand. What were you attempting to do at that point in time?
Just have the officer move.
And again, did you have a conversation at that point, or what was the intent behind that?
I don't recall if I said anything or not. I'm not sure.
And why did you need the officer to move?
So we could move the patient.
Smith said he checked the carotid artery in Floyd's neck to see if he had a pulse. He said he did not feel one. He thought Floyd was dead. Smith said he and Bravender and the officers loaded Floyd into the ambulance and they tried to revive him using chest compressions and a defibrillator. Their efforts were unsuccessful. Now, for tonight's COVID news. France has become the latest European country to relent to stubbornly high coronavirus cases, with President Emmanuel Macron announcing the closure of schools in a limited nationwide lockdown. A day after the announcement of new health restrictions, nursing staff of the intensive care unit of the André Grégoire Hospital in the Paris suburb of Montreuil say they are tired and very worried. They are saying it's all COVID and there's no more room to take on more patients. Meanwhile, opposition lawmakers refuse to vote on the measures and slam the government's strategy. In Washington, Mayor Browser and DC Health continue urging all DC residents and workers to pre-register for a vaccination appointment. Since the pre-registration system launched, approximately 31,330 individuals have already pre-registered, received an invitation, and booked an appointment. To date, approximately 191,190 individuals have pre-registered for and are awaiting an appointment. At this time, all residents and district workers who are not yet vaccinated are encouraged to pre-register regardless of current eligibility. This week, DC is receiving 39,690 doses of vaccine, 17,990 doses for vaccinate.dc.gov, 11,390 doses for hospitals and health centers, and 10,310 doses for special initiatives and partnerships. Now for today's COVID-19 numbers. According to the Coronavirus Resource Center of Johns Hopkins University and Medicine, as of 6 p.m. Eastern Time, Thursday, April 1, 2021, the number of cases of COVID-19 reported worldwide is now over 129,334,000. Top three on the list of countries with recorded cases are the U.S. at over 30.5 million, Brazil at over 12.7 million, and India at over 12.2 million. To date, more than 2,821,000 have succumbed to this virus. The U.S. leads the countries with the most number of COVID-19 related deaths with over 553,000. Brazil is next with more than 321,000, and Mexico has more than 203,000. When we come back, updates from Alberta, Nevada, California, and Texas. This is Eagle News America. Stay with us.
Factual.
We have to defeat the virus everywhere.
Timely information. Balanced, not only in the country, but also abroad.
I'm certain of one thing.
Interviews that people need to know. Watch Aguila Pilipinas. A one-hour newscast of reports coming from regional hubs in Luzon, Visayas, and Mindanao. Know the important updates in Asia in ASEAN in Focus. Track the latest stories in the provinces in Aguila Probinsya. Tune into Mata ng Aguila, the evening primetime news program of Net25. Balanced and objective, Mata ng Aguila covers national and international issues, tackles news on business, health, science and technology, entertainment, sports and human interest features, and current events. And Eagle News International delivers the latest global reports, impartial, accessible, and up-to-date. It brings to fore EBC's rich international scope and access to valuable information streams.
Well, thank you to explain our health outdoor.
Catch these programs on Net25. You can also watch our news programs through eaglenews.ph and Eagle News Facebook page and YouTube channel.
You're watching Eagle News America. I'm Alan Basoyahe in Los Angeles. 28 days. That's how long Canada's Ontario province's lockdown will be as it refuses to be overwhelmed by a COVID third wave. Bureau Chief Thomas Likeness reports.
Effective Saturday, April the 3rd at 12:01 a.m., Ontario will pull the emergency brake for the entire province.
And with that, Ontario Premier Doug Ford announced a 4-week lockdown in an effort to get a third wave of the pandemic under control. A third wave, he says, is caused by variants of the vaccine.
This is a new pandemic. We're now fighting a new enemy. The new variants are far more dangerous than before.
Under the new restrictions, which go into effect Saturday, all indoor and outdoor dining is prohibited. Indoor gatherings will not be allowed, and outdoor gatherings will be limited to 5 people. Worship services are allowed, but attendance cannot exceed 15% of the capacity of the venue. All personal services, such as hair and nail salons, must close down. Essential retail stores can operate at 50% capacity, non-essential retail limited to 25%. Schools will remain open, but will be monitored closely for outbreaks. Ford admits this is going to be tough on people.
I know the toll these restrictions continue to take on people's mental health and well-being. And please understand, folks, this decision weighs extremely heavy on me. I know what this means for people to be here over a year into this pandemic. It's frustrating and it's very, very difficult. But we've come so far. We have sacrificed too much to throw in the towel so close to things getting better.
He says the province has to act now because the cost of doing nothing is too high. Ford says, unlike previous outbreaks, this one seems to be targeting young people.
Younger people are ending up in the hospital. And with these new variants, the risk of ICU admissions is 2 times higher. The risk of death is 1.5 times higher.
With the upcoming holiday weekend, the Premier is hoping people stay home. Ford is pleading with people to be vigilant and not to gather. In Edmonton, Canada, Thomas I. Likeness, Eagle News. We live in interesting times.
A new pandemic, as coined by Canada's Premier, is certainly something we didn't want to hear. Nevertheless, we hope all Canadians are faring well. Thank you, Thomas, for that report. The state of Nevada will be receiving $2.9 billion as part of the American Rescue Plan. How do they use it? Governor Steve Sisolak unveils the plans. And Bureau Chief Anna Cui joins us tonight.
Thank you, Alan. So as we know, President Biden signed that $1.9 trillion American Rescue Plan into law 3 weeks ago tomorrow. And, you know, I'm sure, Alan, you heard much about individuals and families receiving their share of that stimulus package. But now we're hearing that part of that plan is making its way to the states. So those state leaders here in Nevada are still awaiting guidance and actual transfer of their share. Nevada Governor Steve Sisolak announced Thursday the Every Nevadan Recovery Framework. It is the state-specific plan for the expenditure of the $2.9 billion that the state of Nevada will directly receive from the American Rescue Plan. And this is to help address the effects of COVID-19. Governor Sisolak says that the state's ability to recover from this pandemic and to build a stronger Nevada will be dependent upon the recovery of the residents first. So, you know, the state leadership will focus their efforts on a comprehensive approach that will put individuals and families right at the center. That's according to the press release. So this Every Nevada Recovery Framework is an 8-page plan. It's a broad overview of state priorities, and it's designed to help prioritize the expenditure of funds for Nevadans. So it's actually intended to be spent by December 31st, 2024. So, Alan, you might be wondering, what are these state priorities that they're talking about? They're calling them bands or tiers, so they're grouping them, which includes basic health and safety needs, such as food and housing. That's very important. Followed by community initiatives, such as education, support for small businesses and workers, and finally, quality of life expenditures for services that will help build healthy communities. Now, it also talks about within those priorities, categories of strategic enhancement to include, improving healthcare, public education, continued support for businesses, and improving infrastructure. While some lawmakers here in Nevada have been critical that there has not been sufficient discussion about the details of how this federal money is being allocated, the document promises that every dollar spent will be tracked and accounted for, so Nevadans will know exactly how the funds are being used and who they're helping. As a matter of fact, Alan, the plan includes links to portals which lawmakers, state workers, and members of the public can submit their ideas on how to use the money. So that'll be interesting, and it's good that they're engaging the public to do that. Now, in other pandemic-related updates, the eviction moratorium was set to expire Wednesday. Here's what Governor Sisolak had to say about it.
Kids are back in school. we're in the process of transitioning mitigation authority to local governments, and people are heading back to their workplaces. The transition process for each of these areas has been strategic, and Nevada's housing situation is no different. We must transition out of our eviction moratorium, but do so in a way that protects tenants and landlords to the greatest extent possible. That is why today I am announcing that I will be issuing an emergency directive that extends the current state eviction moratorium for 2 more months.
So there you have it. The governor extended that expiration date to end of May. So he made that decision to extend the current eviction moratorium at the state level, and that's in order to give the counties, especially here in Clark County, which is the most populated county in Nevada, also along with the courts and other stakeholders, the needed time to put procedures and processes in place to continue to provide rental assistance funds to landlords on behalf of tenants, and also to ramp up the eviction mediation program, according to the press release. In Las Vegas, Anna Cui, Eagle News, we live in interesting times. Back to you, Alan.
Anna, let's talk about funding. Do you know what else the state plans to use funds for?
Yes, so, they talked about, it outlines more specific recommendations in that plan to include, updating some statewide system that the state has. They've had a lot of backlog with the unemployment insurance system, so they're talking about updating that. Also, because of the pandemic, and all the federal grants that the state has received, they talked about creating a centralized federal grant tracking system. Also backfilling budget cuts, the budget cuts that they had to make because of the pandemic. More importantly, refilling the state's rainy day fund, and maybe calling back, state workers, those who were furloughed, and and hire more new workers as well. Alan?
I'm sure everyone would like to get back to work. And now we've also heard, Anna, about the rising numbers of COVID cases in some states. How about Nevada? What can you tell us about it?
So Nevada, fortunately for us, we are holding the positivity rate below 5%. I took a peek today, and it was 4.2 for the state, and 4% here in Clark County. And I think a lot of that has to do with, just how well the vaccination program is progressing in the state. Here in Nevada, we've vaccinated about 26% of the population. Overall in the state, they have vaccinated over 50%. Alan?
Well, of course, all those numbers sound very promising, but with those numbers, have you noticed the people there in Las Vegas behaving any differently?
Well, the roads are busier, more cars out there, and, restaurants are packed. We're still supposed to be, following a 50% occupancy for, restaurants and other public facilities. But, we're seeing a lot more people out there, Alan. As a matter of fact, the other day we went to our favorite place at Chinatown called Shanghai Plaza. It's a pretty big plaza, full of restaurants and other businesses, and it was packed. Even just by entering, just as we entered the plaza, cars, you couldn't even kind of move around. There was no parking, so it's looking pretty busy.
Anna, do they sell burritos at this Shanghai Plaza that you visited?
They sell a sushi type of burrito, Alan.
I see. So burrito has an influence through many cultures. And, of course, later on we're going to talk about National Burrito Day. We're going to find out later if you are a fan of burritos. But at this time, what we'd like to do is a little Would You Rather game. Are you up for it, Anna?
Sure.
We understand, and we've heard on good report that you and your husband dote on each other quite a lot. So would you rather since restrictions are lifting, spend a night at the movies with your husband, or have your favorite burrito? Mind you, if you go on a date with your husband, burritos aren't included.
definitely go out on a date and have a burrito with my husband, Alan.
You're taking the best of both worlds. What a lucky fella. Anna, thanks so much for that report.
Thank you.
Museum fans in Los Angeles get to see their favorite exhibits as the county's Museum of Art reopens its doors to the public. Emerson Simon joins us tonight to tell us of the safety protocols that need to be observed by patrons.
Thank you, Alan. The Los Angeles County Museum of Art, or LACMA, opens today, April 1, to Angelenos after 1 year of closure due to the pandemic, joining the streams of places like theme parks, sports stadiums, and concert venues that are beginning to reopen their doors to the public at limited capacity with the rapid decline in confirmed COVID-19 cases throughout the county. With over 142,000 collective art objects from around the world exhibited at the constructed galleries inside the building on the 20-acre property, LACMA is considered the largest art museum in the West Coast. Admission tickets are now available and must be reserved online in advance, as there will be no on-site ticket purchasing. Following all precautionary safety measures required by the Los Angeles County Department of Public Health, LACMA will enforce mandatory health screenings, face coverings at all times, physical distancing for 6 feet, flow of traffic directions, and frequent sanitizing or washing of hands. Their website announces as our first priority is the health and safety of our visitors, staff, and volunteers. LACMA has implemented new enhanced health and safety protocols and processes to provide a safe environment for all. Please read all the visitation guidelines below before you visit. Upon visiting LACMA, Los Angeles residents will be able to check out 6 new exhibits on display, which are Yoshitomo Nara, Colleen Smith, Give It or Leave It, Not I, Throwing Voices, Bill Viola, Slowly Turning Narrative, Fiji, Art and Life in the Pacific, and Vera Luter, Museum in the Camera. In Sonoma, California, Emerson Simon, Eagle News, we live in interesting times. Back to you, Alan.
Emerson, it's one of those situations where you don't really appreciate something until you lose it. And as someone who lives in Los Angeles, I really wish I had visited LACMA more often. But now that it's returning, one of the things that I'm looking forward to are private tours. So the question is, will those still be available for visitors?
Alan, LACMA is committed to ensuring a great learning experience in the appreciation and expression of the arts for kids, teens, and adults for all abilities. There are still complimentary tours for visitors with special needs, which focuses on different areas of LACMA's collection and last about 50. Tours must be arranged at least 3 weeks in advance and depend on the availability of LACMA trained arts docents. The public will need to call 323-857-6109 or email educate@lacma.org for more information.
Can't wait to interact again with those trained staff. They're very knowledgeable. But let's also talk about when we arrive there. We're going to anticipate that there will be changes. Emerson, what differences will museum goers notice? And, as it's been directly caused by the pandemic?
Well, Alan, health and safety is a center of every change at LACMA. An example for this is an established flow of traffic. Signs and directions will let visitors where to enter and exit galleries and exhibits. This is just one measure that museums officials have to ensure safe physical distancing.
Fantastic. That means no bumping into each other. Now, Emerson, compared to other museums, we know LACMA is newer, more state-of-the-art. How does this translate to protecting visitors from being infected with coronavirus?
Well, one such way that LACMA is helping to protect guests is by upgrading their air filtration systems and by frequently replacing the MERV 14 filters they use in galleries. Alan?
Now, Emerson, just like we talked about with Anna, we're going to be discussing National Burrito Day, and I know for a fact that you like to eat. I also know you like animals.
Yes.
I believe your family has a pet. We're also going to play a round of Would You Rather. Yes, and here's the Would You Rather. Emerson, would you rather have your favorite burrito or a tiny donkey?
That's pretty hard. Maybe do the best of both worlds as well. Well, of course, the donkey.
Very good, because as you know, a tiny donkey actually translated is burrito. So you couldn't have gone wrong either way.
I could have.
All right. Well, thank you so much for the report. We'll see you in a little bit.
All right. Thank you.
In Corpus Christi, neighbors get to be part of a local church's anniversary celebration. In a community outreach event, city residents receive grocery items to help in their day-to-day needs as the pandemic lingers on. Bureau Chief Jane Kathleen Gregorio is with us this evening with more.
Thank you, Alan, and howdy to you from the Lone Star State. In Corpus Christi, Texas, the Iglesia Ni Cristo Church of Christ decided to celebrate its anniversary over the weekend by sharing groceries with the community. According to resident minister, Brother Zane Dizon, the past few months have been hard on the residents of the community. From pandemic crisis to severe weather to loss of power and water, times have been quite challenging. Therefore, in celebration of 6 years since the local congregation purchased a historical building that was renovated into the Iglesia Ni Cristo Chapel, church volunteers organized a donation drive of hundreds of bags of non-perishable food items and basic necessities that were distributed to local residents via drive-through pickup or curbside walk-up. So today we will actually hear from some of the local residents and guests that participated in this event. Let's take a look.
My name is Gary Ginner, and my wife and I are here as a resident support team for an apartment complex in the Corpus Christi area. I'm here at the church today for this event, for this outreach event that they're doing. They're giving out groceries and supplies to people as they're coming by to be able to support the community and share the love of God with people by generosity. And so it's a very exciting event, and it's so important for churches to reach out to their communities and to be a blessing to their communities. It has been a challenging year as we start 2021, and to be able to have an event like this, I think it's very uplifting for the people who participate in it, because sometimes especially when we're having difficult times, and especially with the isolation that everybody has been going through, it's easy to feel very alone in this world. And when people especially the church takes and reaches out like this and shares generosity and sincere love and hospitality, I think it really kind of helps break off a little bit of the potential bitterness that people can be experiencing, and the loneliness and fearfulness. And so I believe that this is a good opportunity that people will be uplifted by what's happening here today.
Hi, my name is Ruth Ginnerk, and I am a newer member of this community. Lived here for about 5 months now, and I work with various publications. And also my husband and I are a resident support team, so we reach out to a specific apartment community. But I'm here at this event today, and I'm excited for the way that the church is wanting to be Jesus' hands and feet in their own community. And it was also exciting to see that the news had gotten out online, that they were able to promote the event so that other people that might not even live in this neighborhood are able to come and benefit as well. Kind of been a slow start this year. And, just knowing that somebody cares and knowing that there's a little bit of extra help that can help to stretch out a person's budget, and mainly just knowing that people care about people, I think that's probably going to be the biggest thing. The food is great, and the supplies are very helpful. Even just knowing that people care and that they don't just want to, come to church, that they want to be the church, I think that's going to be the biggest impact from from this event today. And happy 6th anniversary to the Corpus Christi congregation of Iglesia ni Cristo.
I'm Francis, and this is Ellie. It's a blessing today for y'all to be giving out groceries because things are hard with the pandemic, so that's a good thing. Say thank you. Thank you.
I think it's great. I think it's good that y'all are helping out and give stuff to the people. I think it's excellent. Right, because people, there's a lot of homeless people out there, and they really need help. So when people in the churches out there helping people, that's a blessing.
I think it's an awesome job. We're doing something for the community. Pandemic, anything helps just to reach out for every part of the community. So anything kind of, anything helping is always a good thing, especially during a pandemic.
For the community, it's really good. It does a lot. A lot of people lost their jobs, and it's benefiting the community a lot for people. So this is great. I appreciate this, and I thank y'all very much.
While some of the problems facing the world cannot be solved in a day, sometimes a bag of groceries and a smile can go a long way in brightening someone's day. In Corpus Christi, Texas, I'm Jane Kathleen Gregorio, Eagle News. We live in interesting times. Back to you, Alan.
And we did pick up on those smiles behind the masks, Jane. Now, how did the church get the word out about this event?
Alan, actually, the church volunteers utilize social media, which is free. They actually had some of their, especially the young ones who are very into the Instagram and other kinds of social media, or Facebook, as a way to sort of advertise. And they also submitted a press release to a local newspaper who published the event on their website. And of course, the volunteers also went door to door, passing out flyers and leaflets, letting them know about the event. And the best advertising sometimes, Alan, is just word of mouth. Actually, some of the community residents had informed their family members and friends, and so they were bringing them on to attend this event. Alan?
Now, Jane, behind the folks that you interviewed is that very remarkable architecture. Can you talk about that? As a historical landmark, how old is the actual building?
Oh, that's a good question, Alan. Actually, it is a very iconic building. It was built in the 1920s, and it's a style called Romanesque Revival. And it was formerly owned by the South Bluff Methodist Church. They had it from 1926 to 2006 before it closed down, as unfortunately many churches nowadays are closing because of lack of membership. But the Iglesia ni Cristo came in 2014 and purchased the property. And as a matter of fact, they restored it, revitalized it. And just to let you know that in 2020, it received recognition from the city of Corpus Christi for preserving a historical landmark and beautifying it and helping to enhance the quality of life for the community. Alan?
Jane, you know that we're going to be talking about National Burrito Day a little bit later on. Earlier, I asked about would you rather question, but I'm going to ask you something different. I'm assuming you like burritos because you're...
Oh, I love burritos. I live in South Texas, of course.
All right, can you just give us, without spoiling it for us, can you just give us one ingredient in a burrito that you must have?
A must for me is cilantro.
Oh, very good. My mother likes cilantro also, so you both have good taste. I also have a must, but it's very far from cilantro, and I can't wait to share it with you a little bit later on, Jane.
Sounds good, Alan.
All right, thanks for the report. Up next, stories from New Jersey and Washington State, business news, and EBC Sports. Eagle News America will return shortly.
For some entrepreneurs, their voice is their business. Voice over talents, voice actors, voice artists, voice coaches. They belong to the creative service industry's thriving business accelerated by the global pandemic that requires work and collaboration to be done remotely. This week, we will hear the titan of Filipino voice acting and the highly sought-after voice director and trainer to share his views on the topic, Your Voice, Your Business.
Kung ano ang kaya mong ibigay ng libre, doon ka maaaring kumita ng malaki. Ano yon? Siyempre, skills mo, time mo, yung heart mo, yung puso mo sa ginagawa mo. Wala first of all, mabuhay ang siyempre ng Pilipino.
Alam nyo, sabi ko sa iyo, huwag nyo kong subukan.
Diba, sabi ko, bawal ang droga, kundi patay ka diha.
Pocholo de Leon Gonzalez, known as the Voice Master of the Philippines, will be joining us in this episode of Open for Business.
You're watching Eagle News America. I'm Alan Basaoyahe in Los Angeles. In New Jersey, small businesses are getting $25 million in pandemic aid. In Union Township, Bureau Chief Carlo Valdez has the details.
Thanks, Alan. On Thursday, Governor Murphy signed into law S3523, providing $25 million in aid to New Jersey small businesses. Governor Murphy said, Main Street businesses have always been the backbone of our economy and unfortunately have been the hardest hit during the pandemic. This bill, along with others I'll sign later this month, will help thousands of businesses keep their doors open as we climb out of the economic hardships wrought by COVID-19. This relief aid will be conducted by the New Jersey Economic Development Authority, which has provided so far more than $250 million in aid to 55,000 New Jersey businesses. And as for coronavirus stats and numbers, New Jersey reports of 4,699 new positive PCR tests, pushing the total to 804,037. Sadly, New Jersey is reporting 30 new confirmed deaths, pushing the total to 22,023 lives lost. In Union Township, New Jersey, Carlo Valdez, Eagle News, we live in interesting times. Back to you, Alan.
Thanks for that report, Carlo. In Washington State, nonprofits are joining hands in the state's fight against hunger. Eagle News correspondent Shanarel Dement has the details.
Can you believe we are coming to the end of the first quarter of 2021 and the pandemic continues to affect us all? According to the Employment Security Department of Washington, the current rate of unemployment is at 6.8%. Fewer jobs and fewer resources means an ever-increasing need for help. Here in Washington State, public figures and local organizations join together in providing resources to the community. Food Lifeline is a Seattle-based company working on the problem of hunger in the area of West Seattle. Food Lifeline is opening the doors of accessibility to allow access to nutritious food by the wide distribution system. The system includes 300 food banks, shelters, and meal programs. At the end of this system, the numbers are staggering. Daily, 134,000 meals are made available to without food. Food Lifeline has gone deeper than getting food to the right people. They went to tackle the root cause. Food Lifeline has identified systemic inequality and social injustice as the primal cause for hunger in Western Washington. Their plan of action in dealing with these issues are effective public policies. Food Lifeline invests and protects programs such as Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program and Social Supplemental Nutrition Program for women, infants, and children. Last year in March of 2020, Seahawks quarterback Russell Wilson and his wife Ciara donated 1 million meals to Food Lifeline. Wilson was quoted saying, "When I came into the league, my goal was to be able to impact people and impact lives." He also mentioned, "I want to be able to give back and love and care for others, then also able to win football games too." Today, the Wilsons continue to develop their own nonprofit organization, the Why Not You Foundation. The mission of this nonprofit is dedicated to fighting poverty through education, empowering youth to lead with a why not you attitude. In fact, opening this fall of 2021 is the Why Not You Academy, which is a tuition-free charter school to offer high-quality education to undeserved youth in the city of Des Moines. When people work together for a common cause, anything is possible. Charitable efforts have been proven to impact the community with hope and positivity, not only to provide a lifeline of food, but to provide a lifeline to a brighter future. Shanorel Dement, reporting in Renton, Washington, Eagle News. We live in interesting times.
And now for business news. S&P breaks the 4,000 index level for the first time. In New York, Bobby Soriano files this report.
Good evening. U.S. markets have closed. Here are your latest business headlines. Today, the S&P 500 index reached 4,000 for the first time in its history, capping off an overwhelming economic comeback from a pandemic-led recession only a year ago. The index, which measures the stock performance of 500 of the most commonly listed businesses on stock exchanges here in the U.S., reached the milestone as investors and analysts were greeted with various positive headlines today. The Biden administration provided more details for its purposed multi-year, multi-trillion-dollar infrastructure plan that the president hopes will rebuild and reinvent U.S. transportation to boost all sectors of the economy. The tech sector also saw a rebound in stock prices, led by news that Microsoft was awarded a multi-billion-dollar contract by the U.S. Army, as well as an announcement by Taiwanese semiconductor company TSMC that they are planning to invest in expanding production capacity to address chip shortages affecting consumer goods. Economic numbers today also showed a huge increase in U.S. manufacturing activity not seen in several decades. Not all news was positive, however, as businesses continue to be wary of an upsurge of infection rates due to coronavirus variants. Unemployment claims showed a recent increase again, and economists are still trying to determine whether the markets have priced in the effect that an increase in the corporate tax rate could hamper any boost from the infrastructure plan. But for the time being, the markets continue their march upward as they remain supported by large spending from the federal government and low interest rates from the Federal Reserve. As mentioned, looking at the numbers for today, weekly first-time unemployment claims broke the downtrend with a bump up for the first time in weeks. Yet all U.S. major indices were in the green, sitting at or near all-time highs. Reporting from New York, Bobby Soriano, Eagle News. We live in interesting times.
For fans of the Olympics, we have the latest developments. With only months left before the Olympics are held in Japan, Olympic organizers and the Japan government made a very difficult decision concerning spectators. Julianne Evangelista tells us the details.
The Tokyo Summer Games will have a different feel in July as the International Olympic Committee, the International Paralympic Committee, and the Japanese government ban overseas spectators due to the ongoing pandemic. The decision was made to secure a safe and secure games for everyone.
So in order to be able to deliver these games, we need to make some difficult decisions because we also want to focus on the safety and the health, but we want these games to be successful as well. It's a difficult combination, but the success of these games lies exactly in how we can remain focused on protecting athletes, protecting Japanese population, protecting everyone who is attending these games, and at the same time deliver what we need to deliver to athletes, to the National Paralympic Committees, National Olympic Committees, and so on and so forth.
This is the game overcoming the pandemic. This is not like in the past games. For the people, the games has to be the light of hope going forward. I would like to have close coordination with all parties so that we can have the successful games. I solicit your continued cooperation.
Families of the Olympic Committee and athletes will remain at home, but IOC President Thomas Bach promises to make these Olympic Games enjoyable through different means of media platforms.
So I hope we can count on their understanding, and we will make all the efforts there to share with them the Olympic spirit by means of broadcasting and digital platforms, so that they can enjoy the Olympic Games Tokyo 2020.
The Tokyo Olympics will run from July 23rd to August 8th, and the Tokyo Paralympics will run from August 24th to September 5th. In Boston, Massachusetts, Julie-Ann Lou Evangelista, Eagle News, we live in interesting times.
Up next, our roundtable about National Burrito Day.
Start up your weekday mornings with edutainment, news, and information kasama ang inyong paboritong Net25 shows. Samahan ang inyong paboritong morning barkada sa Pambansang Almusal at 5 a.m. Tatalakayin mga pangunahing balita sa pagtutulungan ng Radyo Agila at Net25. Samahan si Weng de la Fuente sa Balitalakayan, 7 a.m. Saganang Mamamayan at 8 a.m. NHK World at 9 a.m. Eagle News International at 10 a.m. At mga balitang dapat niyong malaman mula sa Agila, Pilipinas at 11 a.m. This is your morning startup every weekday mornings only here on Net25.
Welcome back. This is Eagle News America. I'm Alan Basoyahe in Los Angeles. Today is National Burrito Day. And before we wrap it up here on our broadcast, we want to find out from our correspondents what they like to wrap up in a tortilla. We want to bring back our correspondents to discuss what they like when it comes to their favorite burrito, but we also wanted to give them a little bit of an incentive. I've just been told by some of our producers here from our Los Angeles Bureau that they are offering a month's supply of free burritos to anyone who can accurately guess what my favorite, my go-to must-have ingredient is in a burrito. And we'll give you a clue so as not to make it too hard. It starts with the letter C. C as in cat. But it's not cat that I like in my burrito, okay? So that's what's at stake. A month of free burritos. If you can guess my favorite must-have ingredient in a burrito. But let's start off first by finding out what they like in their burritos. I want to start first with Jane. Jane, talk to us. What is your epic burrito?
Okay, Alan, for me, and of course you're going to pick on me because I'm from South Texas, but my epic burrito would be a carne asada, which is like a thinly sliced fried beef with cilantro, onions, guacamole, and also queso blanco, or like white cheese, kind of similar to mozzarella, and squeezed with lime, or squeezed with lime juice squeezed on top. To me, those flavors and a little bit of salt is just perfect. That would be my perfect go-to burrito. Alan?
Jane, your pronunciation is impeccable. You must live in Texas. So we did notice that your epic burritos, you can almost smell it all the way over here in Los Angeles. I want to pose the question to you. What is my go-to ingredient, and what's at stake here is a month's supply of free burritos. And in your burrito, you mentioned a couple of ingredients that starts with the letter C. Perchance one of those is my go-to ingredient. What do you think it is?
Well, I mentioned earlier that I love cilantro on my burrito. So I'm guessing maybe C could either be cilantro or it could be cheese.
Oh, okay. You can only choose one. I won't reveal what it is yet. So, Jane, what is your choice?
Okay, I choose cheese. That seems to be the popular ingredient for most people.
Okay, I look like a cheesy kind of guy. I can't blame you. I'm going to move on now to Anna in Las Vegas. Anna, tell us what is your epic burrito, and then later on what your guess is my go-to ingredient. Starts with letter C. What do you have for us?
Yes, Alan. Well, mine is very similar to Kathleen. I do like the carne asada. That would be my first, my favorite, with tomatoes, onions, no cheese for me, and gotta have guacamole or avocado in there, and definitely some. It has to go with I love the chili verde salsa to go with it. Alan?
Everything you just mentioned sounds absolutely delightful. Something that we've all had at one point or another. I'm going to ask you the same question. And cilantro, is it cilantro or cheese? Cheese is already taken. What is my go-to ingredient in my burrito?
I'm not a fan of cilantro, and I'm not sure, Alan, if you are too. I'm going to go with C for carne. I don't know.
Right, because you had carne asada. That's a good guess. Okay, so we have cheese, we have carne or carne asada. Hold on to that thought as we move on to Emerson. Emerson, talk to us. What is your epic burrito? And then you're going to take a guess about what my go-to ingredient is after that. What do you have for us?
Well, Callie's big on burritos. So what I like to put on my burrito is I'm big on al pastor. I love the marinated pork. And I also like chicharrones, which is pretty known here. And I believe I would like to add in like McDonald's fries, because there's something so great about these McDonald's fries with cilantro, avocado, and raw tomatoes and onions diced.
You know, Jean, Kathleen, I don't know if you noticed that very subtle hint that Emerson gave about Cali likes their burritos. I think he was trying to start a burrito war between California and Texas. But be that as it may, Emerson, what is your guess? What is my go-to ingredient in a burrito?
I would say chicharrones.
Chicharrones, okay. Thank you for all of your input. We have chicharrones, we have cheese, and we have carne. None of you are correct, so we get to save our pennies for the month of free burritos. I guess I'll just eat all of it. My go-to ingredient for burritos, I have to have it, starts with letter C, is cow. I must have cow in my burrito. It doesn't matter if it's steak, ground beef, doesn't matter. As long as there's cow in my burrito, I'm a happy camper. And as we wrap it up, we of course always want to acknowledge our healthcare workers, our first responders, and essential workers by giving them a round of applause. Would you please join me? Thank you for being our modern day heroes. We certainly appreciate you. And that is today's Eagle News America. Thank you for joining us. I'm Alan Baso Yahe. We live in interesting times.